podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
This week's pod is supported by Manscaped. Manscaped has just launched in the UK. We've gone years without using the right tools for the job, and now you can be one of the first people in England to experience Manscaped's life-changing products. Manscaped is a skin-safe trimmer for below-the-belt shaving. Their 7,000 RPM motor has quiet stroke technology, and I know you fellas like a quiet stroke. So they tell us that Manscaped's technology will make your testes their besties, and you can get 20% off and free shipping with the code NQAT at manscaped.com. That's code NQAT for 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com.
We're starting this podcast talking about one of the most boring games of football. I mean, that's an exaggeration, isn't it? It's recency bias. We have seen more boring games of football than this. At least there was some attempts on goal in this game.
Yes.
But it was pretty dull.
Dave made one save. One save. I mean, but look, both for differing reasons, I think both teams took it quite cautiously, didn't they? So Chelsea have shipped a lot of goals recently. Yeah, really a lot of goals. And so Lampard went to 3 at the back, which I said he wouldn't do last week. Hey, good quality punditry there. And just try to shut the game down a bit. And they really had no ambition. I mean, they had good amount of the ball in the first half, but didn't create much. And then United, cautious again with a double pivot at home, which, haven't won at home for quite a long time. Is that 6 games without a win at home? Something like that.
It's at least 5, yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think, whereas we'd praised Solskjaer in midweek for changing the pattern of the game against PSG with the substitutions, he didn't really do that this time. And it all felt quite conservative all the way through. Whereas, I'm looking at that Chelsea side, and I guess, as I said, tried to make the point on the pod last week, they're perhaps there for the taking. And United didn't really put pressure on them in the core parts of the pitch for enough of the game. And it all sort of cancelled each other out in the end. I don't know, what were your thoughts? I mean, did you enjoy this at all?
I would definitely have much rather had the 2 hours back and done something else. I liked it when Marcus Rashford nearly scored right at the end, and friend of the show, Darren Richmond, tweeted, "Come on, Mendy, read the room," because Mendy made that good save.
Yeah, and he made a few good saves, Mendy, didn't he? I mean, United created vast bulk of the chances. 14 shots, only the 4 on target, which will tell you something of the nature. I mean, a few of those are fairly long range, but he had to make some saves.
Yeah, and Dave didn't.
And Dave didn't. He had that one save to make, and that was it.
I mean, I have to say, if we were, there must be Chelsea podcasters this weekend going, for God's sake, they were there for the taking. What were you doing? Why are you playing so conservatively against them? They're not that much of a, they're so weak at the back. Why don't you try and expose their core weaknesses? I actually think, we talked a bit on the preview about whether we should go with a back 3, and you were saying, might be a bit of a defensive move. And I actually think what he did was the worst of both worlds, because to play with that midfield pivot in a 4-2-3-1, now you're really playing a defensive lineup, because essentially with James on the left, Fred and McTominay, okay, so Fred can occasionally create something. McTominay creates next to nothing. Daniel James creates negative nothing. So you've got Mata, Fernandes and Rashford, and the fullbacks in very inverted commas, neither of whom are going to create anything. Of course, I don't literally mean neither of whom will ever create anything, but broadly speaking, all the creative impetus is on 3 players in that side. I mean, that is a incredibly defensive mindset. And like you said, that I thought the changes were weird. I mean, I know everybody's been talking about this in relation to this game, but given that he didn't play against Paris, he hasn't started a game in the league yet, I thought, and how good he's looked when he's played, I thought the fact that Van der Beek didn't come on at half-time for Fred, say, or McTominay, and McTominay was pretty dreadful in this game, actually. I thought that was quite shocking. And having praised Solskjaer for getting the tactics, the tone, and the substitutions right, the starting tactics, the tone, and the substitutions right against Paris, I would say in this game he got the starting tactics, the tone, and the substitutions all wrong in this game.
Yeah, and then on top of that, some individual performances that didn't really, add to United's attacking cause, really. I mean, you've called out McTominay, who's very quiet, and Fred too, really. I mean...
sure.
Yeah. I mean, neither of them create anything, really. And we've talked about the fullbacks ad infinitum. I mean, I do think there's a point. I mean, Shaw is shot, I think, but we'll see whether Tellez can put any pressure on him, real pressure, this season or not. And at some point later on in the season, we can return to Wan-Bissaka and see whether he's improved at all, because he has to in the modern game. Otherwise, United have a real problem, and especially playing Dan James as one of the wide attackers and Mata as the other one, who's not going to create anything from wide, is he? He's always going to drift in. So it kind of had a bit of an old school feel to it, this one. This is a United team that just didn't create much at all, despite all those shots. I mean, they were just not even half chances, most of them. I mean, 0.87 the combined XG in this game, which will tell you just how much quality openings there were.
Between both teams?
Yeah, combined.
That is impressively dreadful. Yeah, so 0-0, very much the right result then in a game that created less than a goal's worth of quality of chances. I mean, to be just a broken record that everyone's seen, I'm sure the clip of, I noticed this in real time, of Fernandes pointing to Shaw to go on the overlap and Shaw just not going on the overlap. Really dodgy. Luke Shaw, perfectly serviceable as a left centre-back in a back three. Shot in that.
Yeah.
Shot in that formation. I don't really understand. Tellez wasn't even on the bench, of course.
No, I mean...
So talk that perhaps he was injured.
Maybe he picked up an injury. Maybe they were concerned about the amount of football he's played. Although he started the season with Porto, so he's not completely undercooked, like, say, Cavani. I think we obviously feel that there's a higher ceiling for Wan-Bissaka. That's why we'll reserve criticism of him. But his expected assists last season were 0.08, right? So and I know he improved as the season went on, but it's even less so far this season. Very small sample size.
But my argument with you about Wan-Bissaka isn't about the ceiling on his ability as an attacking fullback. It's his quality as a defensive fullback. Now, what that means is the team as a collective, and Solskjaer should know this, you cannot be relying on him for your productivity on the right-hand side. He is an absolutely exceptional talent at what he is an exceptional talent at, and he's worth having in the side for his ability to defend, particularly in a world of football.
And my point isn't binary. I mean, there was I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was might be Martin Lipton or one of the journalists tweeted out something along the lines of, when does Solskjaer run out of patience with him? And I just think in the way that the game has developed, that attacking fullbacks have become very important. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone has to play the same way. But if United are going to play with a fullback who we cannot expect to create much and does honestly get a nosebleed in attacking situations quite a lot, he's got a bit of the Antonio Valencias about him, then we have to build our team accordingly. Now, I assume that's why we wanted Jadon Sancho, or Solskjaer wanted Jadon Sancho, I should say, because his numbers, both in terms of creating the assists, the expected assists, his XG chain, his goals, his expected goals, it's world class, every single number. And that would have balanced some of that out a little bit. But without it, we went into the game with Juan Mato, who admittedly had a very good game against Newcastle. Is it only a week ago now? There's so many games so fast, it's hard to keep track. And, a week ago, had a very good game in a team that was the same team, right? But had a very different outcome, albeit very, very late in the day.
Very different opponent.
Very different opponent, playing a different way. Hoping beyond hope that Juan Mata would be able to create with a defensive fullback, very good defensive fullback behind him, a not very good defensive fullback on the other wing, and Dan James, who at this point, he's just Solskjaer is handing him a punishment beating, just putting him in the team. It's cruelty. It just means United. He went on one run at which unfortunately, of course, triggered all the United fans on social media. Went on one run in the second half, in which he just kind of knew beforehand as he got it in some space and was fairly central and was running more centrally that he'd just run into a blind alley. And that's what he did.
Absolutely.
And he's just a waste of space in the United team at the moment as a result. And so it's not surprising United created just the 0.67 or 0.65, of the 0.87 of total XG, because there just wasn't much there. And like the other thing which I think is interesting, and it's partly Luke Shaw's fault as well, is Marcus Rashford makes so many runs peeling in behind either the fullback or the right-sided of a back three, depending on who United plays. So many. And the amount of times someone finds him, it's just almost minimal. It's just tiny. And, there's the frustration where we have on the bench Pogba and Van der Beek, two extremely creative players, and he's just not using them, basically.
And talking of making runs and players on the bench, Edinson Cavani came on and he looked really bright, nearly scored with his first touch. His runs were excellent. There was a very funny moment where I was watching, chatting with a friend of mine whilst watching, and McTominay was on the ball and Cavani made a run. McTominay didn't even think about looking for him, obviously. And me and my friend were like, "Oh yeah, you're gonna have to like learn." And in like police training drills where it's like criminal and then innocent bystander, and you have to like shoot the right ones. I don't know if this happens in real life, but it happens in Call of Duty. I feel like United strikers should be given drills like McTominay's on the ball, don't run. Pogba's on the ball, run. It was just. Yeah, he's going to learn. He needs to learn which midfielders to make the runs for. But that sort of speaks to the lack of creativity. So he brought Cavani and Pogba on at the same time. Pogba wasn't able to have the influence on games that he's had coming on late recently. And I was kind of just waiting for the assumed 75th minute Van der Beek change. But I thought bringing Greenwood on was a massive, massive mistake, because the problem wasn't no one to put chances away. The problem was no one to make those chances. And Greenwood can create chances for himself excellently and is just a very promising talent in all sorts of ways. But that game needed Van der Beek was the call in that situation, in my opinion.
Well, I guess so. I think the problem with when you're playing in back threes, you definitely want some width. Because the width is behind unless it's a flat back five, which it was for a fair amount of that, the width is typically behind the wing back.
The space.
The space, yeah, sorry. You want some width because the space is behind the fullback. And also, of course, the crossfield ball is extremely dangerous in that, playing against that system, depending on how far the fullbacks push up. So, United were short of width, and that's typically what you'd go to. Van der Beek came on and played sort of wide-ish left the other day, sort of, coming in off the left. I'm sure it's not what he wants to do. And I have a bigger question about what Ollie's plan is here, because it's 3 games in a row now he's played McTominay and Fred. That's
a frightening sentence.
Well, it's and then he's got So is all the creativity on, because there's no natural width in the United team at all, is all the creativity then on Fernandes? And if it is, does that make it a fairly easy system to play against? I'd suggest it probably does. And, maybe teams haven't worked it out quite yet, but if they do, it's going to be a problem for United. So, and then what happens then? I mean, I don't know what the plan is, or whether it's just a reaction to the defeat against Spurs. That, and it could well be. Or Pogba's not quite sharp yet, we're still suffering with coronavirus, or Ollie doesn't believe in him. I don't know what it is. I mean, he spoke well of him after the game. And if he doesn't believe in Pogba, why isn't Van der Beek playing? Is it because he doesn't believe that Van der Beek can play an 8? I mean, Fernandes dropped a bit deeper, didn't he, after Pogba came on against Chelsea? Does he not believe in Fernandes as an 8? If he doesn't believe Van der Beek and Fernandes can play in the same team at the same time, what was this purchase for? Because, yes, you want quality and depth, but United were definitely shorter in other areas than a number 10, in which Fernandes, Pogba and Van der Beek and Juan Mata all want to play in that position. Anyway, more questions than answers there, but yeah, some issues, I'd say.
Yeah, and I thought it was worth saying, Fernandes actually had a pretty good game in this game, which just shows you how you can't rely on him, because it's not like we didn't create anything because he had a bad game. He was really bright and sharp and just generally looked to cut above everyone else in the team in terms of like acuity and decision making and all those kinds of things. And God, if you put a good team around him, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it when the good players are all playing. And, United have had suspension issues in that Martial wasn't there and Cavani's obviously not ready. And clearly the Tellez thing, he's not... I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we play a back three against Leipzig and play Seashore and Tellez in the side. It sort of makes sense to me that that's what the plan is. But yeah, all in all, that's a lot of conversation about a game that probably doesn't warrant any more of anyone's time than they already spent watching it.
Yes, I suppose so. I mean, there's no details to talk about because I can't remember. Were there any great chances United missed? No, I mean,
no.
Cavani nearly hit the post with his first touch.
Yeah, Rashford hit a couple of decent shots that were well saved.
Yeah, there's one he got in a very similar position to PSG. Couldn't quite, kind of got under his feet a little bit and couldn't quite get the shot away early enough.
Yeah, Mendy made a good save. It was almost like he couldn't get the shot away early enough or take the extra touch to make it a more dangerous chance. He got caught slightly in between two stalls, Rashford, I thought.
And Maguire and Lindelof, worth noting, no horrendous mistakes in this one.
Lindelof
both did okay.
Really good in possession, actually. Lindelof looked really cool and assured and had a really good game all round, actually, I thought.
And no howlers from Dave. Haven't had one yet this season.
No, and we've had a lot of good saves too, and generally looking, is it too soon to say he's looking back to his best? I feel a bit like quite fulsome of praise of Solskjaer in the last couple of games and having a big pop, and United won those 2 games on the bounce after Tottenham, and the 4-1 was a great scoreline, and they played some really good football in the last 10 minutes, and the PSG game was obviously a fantastic win. This feels very reactive to kind of swing back to kind of like, oh God, it's all a bit rubbish, isn't it?
No, that's all right. But I think
I'm talking about me.
I'm talking about a bit rubbish, not
exactly.
It's all a bit rubbish.
Yeah, but there is this feeling that a bit rubbish is never very far away. That's the thing, and this is kind of why the reaction on Tuesday night of like, oh, anyone that's ever doubted Ole Solskjaer is an absolute moron, that kind of reaction, which we've seen a lot of. It's like, I don't think that's true. I think that this is, I think there is a lot, like you said, more questions than answers, and hopefully we'll put in a great performance against Leipzig in midweek, and Arsenal will probably be a different sort of opposition to Chelsea, although actually Arteta has played quite defensively in big games. I don't know whether he will in this one, but I guess should we take a break and then talk a bit about news and a bit about those games?
All right, let's do it.
If you want more from the show in between shows, check us out on the socials. We are NQAT Pod on Instagram, Ed's at NQAT Pod on Twitter, and we are under our real names on Facebook at No Question About That. All right, so the main news is that Marcus Rashford, I mean, when we recorded the show last time, it was the night that he started doing what he's been doing ever since. His team started doing what they've been doing ever since. I'd said on the show, even though he lost the vote in the Houses of Parliament, he's definitely going to win because a lot fewer children were going to go hungry because of him. I don't think I was quite predicting a massive nationwide campaign that means I'm pretty sure that not a single child is going to have to go hungry over the half-term break they might still go hungry, but they're going to get at least a meal, that's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of the private sector has stepped up here because the government wouldn't. And
local governments.
And local governments have, but local governments are desperately short on money. Now, there's a whole bunch of Conservative MPs claiming that money that local governments were spending is central government money because, of course, central government has had to transfer money to local governments to cover the council rate rebate that there has been this year and other measures. But, the 10-year trend of central government to local government funding has been very sharply downwards, right? So it was pretty disingenuous of some of those MPs to claim it was sort of secretly a win for the government. Marcus Rashford has owned these MPs. So I, as I was telling you on WhatsApp, I know our local MP pretty well and just happened to bump into her in the park and spoke to her for about an hour about this. And what she actually said was the debate was just as bad as you can imagine in Parliament. So it's not just Ben Bradshaw who's made a complete twat of himself on Twitter, but quite a lot of people have that take. Now, they're not saying that food vouchers are going to crack dens and prostitutes, as Bradshaw claimed. But the general pervasive sense on the government benches is that it's am I characterising this right if I say that there's a sense that poverty is made by the poor, whereas privilege is earned by the wealthy. And that may be a mischaracterization, but I think it's probably fair in plenty of circumstances. So we had a whole discussion about that. And the second piece is that likelihood is that the government will have to climb down. They're just not going to do it straight away, which will leave some children short over the October half term, unnecessarily so. And especially since Marcus, as we spoke about last week, has made it completely apolitical. Completely.
Exactly. And I'm almost like, I wasn't even going to bring up the nature of the Tory response or anything like that. I was kind of more, just because I'm sick of the sound of my own thoughts about Tories. Not positive, just if you were wondering, that they're not positive. Someone called me a communist today. I'm a lot of things. I'm definitely not a communist. Anyway, sorry to my comrades that are, if I've let you down there. But, anyway, the thing that I found extremely heartening is, I mean, there are big, splashy private sector moves, which I'm not so interested in, but it is this proof of existence of community, little local businesses and cafes and people who've been hit incredibly hard, massively struggling, just saying, in spite of all of this, we are going to do this. And
yes,
of course,
well, one MP actually came out and said, well, the businesses that are doing this, they should have that money deducted from the benefits they've had in terms of the furlough scheme and council tax rebates and all of that kind of stuff.
Sure. I just wanted to just give me 5 seconds to end on a slightly more optimistic note about humanity, because there's so much bleakness out there. It was nice to see that there were some of the posts that Rashford's team shared, which got me in a profound way, because there were some which were a bit like, terms and conditions apply, see site for details. It's fine, you do what you got to do. But there were some which were just like so clearly from the heart and based on personal experience and full of respect and compassion and empathy and, you know, awareness of the stigma and all of those kinds of things. And just like one that was, and of course, like mum or dad can have a free coffee as well. And it's just nice. Of course, we should live in a world where this is completely unnecessary, but given that we don't, it shows you what can be done when you inspire people. And that's the thing that Marcus Rashford, I mean, you were saying to me when we were speaking on the phone the other day, look how, oh no, it was on the show. That's where it was. So people have already heard this, but how many kids are like citing Rashford as an inspiration and all this. He's making a massive tangible difference in people's lives in spite of the system trying to work against him. It's quite remarkable.
Yes, and I think there are many in government and politics who've miscalculated. They thought they handed him the MBE and he'd just shut up and go away. And he's certainly not doing that. He's taken his platform and taken his position and doubled down, and good for him for doing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing is, you know, like, because one of the other reactions has been, oh, well, he's got this massive platform. Well, lots of famous people have massive platforms. Lots of famous people don't do anything with it.
Yeah. And the people that are attacking him, you know, it really does show you how desperately low certain sides of these arguments have got and where it all comes from. So, but yeah, in spite of all of that, he's moved mountains and the world is a profoundly better place because Marcus Rashford exists and not just because of the late winner against PSG. Either of the late winners against PSG.
But that too. Anyway, any more news this week? And we did a very lengthy piece on the midweek pod about financials and that kind of nonsense. There was actually, if you go to the Price of Football, he tweeted a thread about the full accounts that were published, 780 odd pages of them. Even I'm not going to go looking through that, which had a few morsels in it, including a stock buyback, about £21 million worth of stock buyback, which is just a
why do they do that?
Just to prop up the share price. Yes, is a low volume stock anyway. 78% of the stock is held by the Glazers and so not traded. 22% is traded, but even then, most of that is held by long-term funds like Blackstone and a few others. So there's not very much traded. So a small buyback like that, which is 1%, less than 1% of the total capitalization of the company, can have an impact on the share price. So they're just trying to prop it up a little bit. I don't know whether any of those sort of institutionals that own the 22% had a word, or the Glazers were concerned about that. But yeah, propping up the price of the asset.
So is that a commonly done thing in businesses?
Yes, I mean, it is. I mean, it was very commonly done, actually, after the tax bill was pushed through in the US, 2 years ago now, 3 years ago, which just basically gave a huge corporate tax cut. So dumped about $1 trillion worth of money into corporates. And there's a big debate at the time amongst macroeconomists. It's late in the day, folks. I can't even say what I trained to do at university. About whether that would lead to capital investment, so businesses spending money to create value in the future through things like R&D or training and that kind of stuff. And the trickle-down view, the sort of supply-side economist view, is that, yes, that leads to business investment and that's good for the economy in the end. What this actually led to was about 95% of that money being dumped into stock buybacks. So returning that money to investors, shareholders, which in the case of the US, slightly different in other countries, is only about 45% of the population and very, very highly concentrated amongst a few people. And I suppose without getting too communist about this, you can imagine exactly who those few people are.
Very interesting. There was some debate on Kieran for Price of Football's Twitter, he tweeted 436,000 spent on tax avoidance services. Lots of people going, oh, well, actually, it's just tax services. Like, could just be VAT advice. And he replied with a gif going, like, I want that job if it's £436,000. And we should stress that A, I'm just reporting what someone else said, and B, talking about tax avoidance, not tax evasion. Just want to stress that if anyone's listening.
Much as I'd like one or many of the Glazer kids to be hauled off for doing something illegal and sent to Her Majesty's pleasure for a few years, I think it's probably unlikely. Yes, I mean, I think the thing with that is, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a lot for Manchester United, but it was triple the amount spent the year before.
Yeah, very interesting. I guess tax has got a little more complicated, hasn't it? But anyway, so that's enough of that sort of thing. Let's talk about RB Leipzig. Well, we've just played the team that's got Timo Werner in it, so it's a bit confusing that we're now playing Leipzig. How are they doing? I haven't really been paying attention to the Bundesliga at all this season. Have they sort of recovered from losing some of their best players? I see that they beat Istanbul. Top. Yeah, right. Well, there you go. So they're doing all right, clearly. Oh yeah, look at that. Played 5-1-4. Goals 4-12, goals 3, goals against 3. Not quite Bayern's 22 goals in 5 games or Ajax's 13 goals in 1 game.
I mean, the funny thing about sorry for the diversion, but the funny thing about the Ajax score, so 13 goals, but the opposition keeper saved 10 saves. That was the biggest in like Eredivisie history or something like that.
That is pretty crazy. So Rasenball Sport Leipzig, as they should no doubt be known, are spreading the goals out a lot this season. Forsberg, who is their sort of creative fulcrum across, can play anywhere in the sort of 3 of a 4-2-3-1, has 2 goals. Angelino, their left back or left midfielder, also has 2 goals. And Dani Olmo, right-sided attacking midfielder, young
Spanish,
22-year-old.
Came from Croatian football, I think, if I'm right in saying. So.
Right. And so far that looks to be one of those kind of like Rasenball Sport group moves where they pick someone with good numbers, because they're good at the numbers, these guys, aren't they? He's got 3 assists already this season in the league, which is a lot.
Yeah, I mean, look, they play with a 4-2-3-1, basically. Pretty standard. Sorloth will probably play up front on his own, maybe. I'm guessing. Of course, they've got, I was going to call him Patrick Kluivert, Justin Kluivert in the squad these days. And of course, Dayot Upamecano, who is attracting interest from absolutely everybody.
Yeah.
And Manchester United. Not like we'd need a quality centre-back or anything.
Well, in the Bundesliga so far this season, they've gone with a back 3 out of the 5 games and played the 4-2-3-1 twice. So I wonder if we're going to see back 3 against back 3 in this game. In fact, I'm going to go out on a limb and say I think we are going to see back 3 against back 3 in this game, because I strongly think that United are going to play a back 3 here.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't in the game against Besiktas. Maybe they do similar to United. I mean, I haven't followed Leipzig at all this season, really. Maybe they do against teams they reckon to be higher quality. Funny, I normally dip into a Bundesliga game every couple of weeks or so, but I haven't since the new season started. Watched a fair bit, as I think many people short of football did at the end of last season.
Yeah. So they are diminished from last season, but not struggling for it at the moment. Clearly, a team banging form. They won their one Champions League game. They won their game last week. I guess we could have done with like an unlikely draw or something in this. One thing I will say is this is an absolutely crucial game, and I do think United's selection dilemmas are going to be interesting. So we can assume Cavani's going to be on the bench and come on. Rashford, Martial will both play. Definitely. Bruno will play definitely. I guess we might see a back three of Axel. Well, I don't know. I wonder whether you get Maguire and Lindelof in a back three, who the third one is, whether he'll go with Shaw.
He normally goes with Shaw if it is a back three. I'm not quite as convinced as you.
Okay.
I mean, I guess they'll make a guess on the formation. So, yeah. I mean, plus it's at home for whatever that means. I mean, we're better away from home apparently these days, being a counter-attacking side and all that. So yeah, we'll see. I think if it's three, he'll probably go with Shaw because he seems to trust in there, and he certainly makes fewer mistakes there. And two, and Zabi's performance against PSG was just such high quality that I'd like to see him get a few more games. You know,
I'd like to see him play in this game because I think the one thing we could say about Leipzig is they're obviously a team that thrive on playing in the transitions, right? That's their...
I mean, the other thing about Shaw, of course, is he's left-footed. You know, and that does make a difference in possession out of the back if you're playing a back three for sure.
So I wonder whether you could see Shaw, Maguire, and Tuanzebe. I mean, I guess he's not going to drop one of Maguire or Lindelof, but for Tuanzebe not to play in this game where Red Bull are so good on the transitions, and Tuanzebe and Wan-Bissaka both absolutely nailed PSG in one-on-one defending, and that's been United's big problem. I think it'd be a fairly substantially sized mistake not to play Tuanzebe if it is a back three. Well, actually, I think it's a substantial mistake even if it's a back four, but I don't think we're quite there yet.
Yeah, and then the other open spot is, open questions are who in midfield? Is it Fred and McTominay again? Obviously, for various different reasons, I'd like a bit more creativity in there. And who plays on the right-hand side? I mean, I don't think it'll be Juan Mata again. Twice in 4 days seems unlikely to me.
So it seems like there's at least a possibility that Greenwood's going to start in this game. How do you think this game is likely to pan out?
Yeah, there's a possibility he'll start. He hasn't started a game for a few weeks now.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see whether he does. How will it pan out? I think United struggle against this kind of side with the high aggressive press, the ability for United's back 3, 4, or 5 to get beyond that press in any format at all. It's super hard, and any team that is able to turn it around the game in the transition as quickly as Leipzig do also cause United a lot of problems, given that Lindelof and Maguire are neither any good on the turn or have any recovery pace at all. Now, Timo Werner's not in this side anymore, obviously. Didn't cause United too many problems, although we had a fairly deep back line, I would say. Here at home, pushing forward, there's definitely a risk, even if he's not in the side. I mean, whether it's Yusuf or Soloth, they're not as quick. And so, the Leipzig attack is blunted a little bit by that, but it feels like it's set up for United to struggle a little bit. It's the kind of game in which we have problems.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more, and I do think that's one of the reasons why it's so important to play Tuanzebe. But I think so. So what's the recipe for United's success here? To me, I think that if you could actually say playing with back three, and Tellez on the left, trying to create overloads on the left-hand side and trying to play directly, trying to play rather than consistently trying to play through the press, like play some pingers through. That's another reason to play Tuanzebe, that he can hit those long raking diagonals, play Pogba deeper, but not expecting him to carry the ball forward, but with permission to play directly on when we turn over a turnover, as it were, try and hit them hard and hit them quickly and get in behind, especially if they play back three, take advantage of the space on the flanks, but in the sense of getting Rashford and Martial in behind. I think that might be the way to go in this game. Certainly if we see anything like the PSG game, we'll see Martial and Rashford a long way apart from each other up front, because that's what happened in that game, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it would again load United's attack down one side of the pitch.
Yeah, but how do we avoid that? I mean, the only way to avoid that, right, is even if you play a 4-3-3, Greenwood cuts inside constantly himself, doesn't he? But then at least they're cutting inside from both sides, I guess.
Yeah, and at least there's the potential for having an overload or two players out there, as they won't be in a 3-5-2 or a 5-3-2. Anyway, I think there's a very big chance United get turned over in this game. I'm not saying it's for definite, and it does depend on United could suck the air out of it by playing 3 at the back, 5 at the back, and being a little more circumspect. We'll see. This is a side that were pretty comfortable winners against Spurs last season, as you'll have seen in the Amazon documentary All or Nothing.
Don't know if we've ever mentioned that before. A fascinating tie and a really challenging one, and a very different challenge to PSG, and seemingly one that is a worse matchup. I've been watching a lot of T20 cricket, so a lot of matchup talk in T20 cricket. This feels like a bad matchup for United. We're not going to be able to do a podcast after this game because of some stuff that's going on in my week. But then after that, we play Arsenal. And talking of matchups, historically, a very favourable matchup for United. But I think a very different challenge, because I don't think Arsenal will press and harry in the same way. They played a very deep block against City. I wonder whether they'll take a similar approach. It doesn't, unless United hit functioning top gear, it's quite a good way to play against us again, which it shouldn't be now with the players in the squad.
Yeah, I mean, look, Arsenal are basically playing 3-4-3 every week now, aren't they? It's the system they're playing, and it works for them, whether they're playing Aubameyang in sort of left and coming in, and Lacazette up top, or Saka is playing today against Leicester City. They've got in Tierney and Bellerin, two very attacking players, well suited to playing those sort of wing-back roles. They are well stocked in terms of central defenders and options, though a few injuries means Xhaka's playing tonight, which perhaps isn't exactly what they want. And they have nice balance in central midfield. Celebos and Partey has the potential for being a nicely balanced central midfield. Bit of grit, bit of quality on the ball. It's not a perfect side by any means. There's definitely a soft underbelly there still, especially in central defence. They haven't quite got that one right yet. But it's a team that you feel is moving forward and in the right direction under a coach that really knows what he wants. Yeah,
absolutely. So I'm going to predict that we lose 2-1 to Leipzig and beat Arsenal 3-1. That's my prediction.
Just calling out random numbers at this point.
No. The logical breakdown behind that is I think we'll lose to Red Bull and then get a reaction against Arsenal. And Arsenal.
Do Arsenal have a Europa League game on the Thursday night?
Yeah,
they probably do.
Imagine so. Good, I think everyone plays 100 games a year nowadays, don't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, they're playing. I think they might feel fairly confident to rest some of their players against Dundalk, who they are playing in the Europa League.
It's pretty offensive, Paul.
Isn't it nice not being in the Europa League?
Oh, it's very good. I mean, let's not jinx it.
Yeah, well, we got tonked 7-0 by Leipzig midweek. We might pine for the days of Saint-Etienne.
We will see. Yeah. I don't know if I've got a sense. I mean, I think there's a chance that the Leipzig game will be challenging. Not necessarily we're definitely going to lose, though. So I might say 1-1 in both these games.
Okay. Sounds plausible to me. Patreon backers, stay tuned for some chat about football in general. And everyone else, we'll see you next week.
All right. See you then.
part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.